Hey guys, how's it going? I decided to make a little video for everyone showing off our Dragon Quest collection because I've seen a lot of people asking about the Dragon Quest series because of the Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2 pack that's coming out for the Switch. It's getting a lot of attention right now, so thought it'd be a good time to kind of talk about Dragon Quest a little bit and show off my collection. Dragon Quest is a series that's been around since the 1980s, actually before Final Fantasy. It's never really caught on in the US, but it's huge in Japan. Huge is an understatement, in fact. It's like a household name, pretty much. And the art is done by Akira Toriyama, which most Americans probably know from Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, so his art is really distinct and recognizable, which I think has helped a lot with the popularity over in Japan, but perhaps hurt the popularity over here actually, because I've encountered a lot of people that see the art of Dragon Quest and think it's actually like a ripoff of Dragon Ball, which is really funny because it's not. It's the same guy. He does all the characters and creature design. But anyway, the first Dragon Quest game, the first two actually, I have in this Super Nintendo cart. This is actually fan made with a fan translation, because this particular version, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 for the Super Nintendo, never came out over here. It only came out on the Super Famicom in Japan. And I also have the Game Boy Color port. This is the original Japanese. You can see it's really cool. But if you'll notice here, I don't know if you can see that, but Enix. So Enix is the company that makes the Dragon Quest series, which you probably know merged with Squaresoft a few years ago, and they became Square Enix after that. But it was originally Enix was just Dragon Quest. They made a few other games like Illusion of Gaia for the Super Nintendo. Here's the actual game of the Game Boy Color. So this is Dragon Quest 1 and 2. If you want to support Dragon Quest, I guess really the best way to do that, as far as playing the first two games, is to play the mobile ports, because that's the only way really that the money goes right to Square Enix. Unfortunately, in my opinion, those are the most inferior ways to play the game. But like I said, if you want to give your money to them and kind of see what it's all about, but the mobile games, they're so streamlined in the kind of the speed that your character moves around the world and the things that they did to make it more accessible and stuff. Wouldn't necessarily calling it dumbing down, but when I played the first Dragon Quest on the Super Nintendo version, it almost felt to me like Elder Scrolls on the Super Nintendo. Just this big open world, which actually isn't that big at all. In fact, the entire world from the first game fits in the second game as one small continent. But just wandering around, exploring caves with a torch, these first-person battles, just kind of like wandering around, not knowing what was around the next corner, and I really, really liked it. And when you play the mobile game version, it really takes away from that, in my opinion. But like I said, if I had to play any version, it would be this one, followed by this one, and then the mobile game I would say last. Then you got Dragon Quest III. This one, again, can only be played as a mobile game. Officially, this is another fan-made game. I don't have the, what do you call it, original Japanese version, but this was a Famicom game, so 8-bit, and then got ported over to the Super Famicom with a new engine and stuff. If you've heard the music in the background during this video, I'm playing one of my Dragon Quest CDs, which I got on eBay for pretty cheap. If you're at all into classical music or musical arrangements, or you just appreciate music in any way, the Dragon Quest music is fantastic. And I'm playing right now a string quartet, a Dragon Quest string quartet that has selections from the first 7 games. That's playing in the background right now. It's 2 discs. Like I said, I got it on eBay for really cheap. And I also have this one, which is a full orchestra, and it's just the music from 5, which I'll talk about in a moment here. 5 being my favorite, probably, of the Dragon Quest games. It definitely has the best story out of all of them, for sure. So if you are looking for more of a story experience, if you're really into good stories, I would definitely suggest Dragon Quest V. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit, so let me talk about 4 first. Now here's where we get into Dragon Quest games that you guys can pretty easily get and get a really good experience. Pretty much all the other Dragon Quests after 3 are available on the DS or 3DS, so here's 4 on the DS. It's different from the other Dragon Quests in a lot of ways, in that of these different characters you see here, it's actually really cool. Some people don't like it, but I really like it. You play as these different characters individually. All these different characters you have, and like I said, it's very different from the other games in some ways, which some people don't like, but I really like it. The different characters you see here, you play each of them individually first and kind of learn a lot about their backstory and who they are, and they each have musical themes, which really ties them together for you well, which I really like when they do that in games. And then by the time they all join up together and you have like more of your traditional, pick your party members kind of thing, you have really good backstory and appreciation for all the characters. So I really like this one a lot. I realized that I didn't talk about 3 that much before, and it's a really good game. It's like Final Fantasy 3 actually in a lot of ways, in that you can create your own party right from the beginning pretty much. You pick their classes and everything. It's got a really big world. It's got a night and day cycle, which completely changes the towns, which I think is really ahead of its time, especially for an 8-bit game. And has a lot of really surprising things without spoiling anything, and the side quests that you can do and stuff that really surprised me the first time I played through it. Now getting to 5, like I said earlier, in my opinion, probably the best story between 5 and 8. I think if you're going for pure story, 5 and 8 are your best bets. 5 just has some incredibly emotional moments. All the Dragon Quest games, I will tell you, are pretty silly most of the time. They definitely don't take themselves nearly as seriously as Final Fantasy. But 5 has some really hard-hitting emotional parts. If you've got any sort of heart at all, it will be put under real strain in 5. So I don't really want to say much more about it, but it's a really good game. Then you got 6. Now this is where some personal bias comes in for me. 6, really good music. A really big, cool world, a lot of cool systems, class systems. However, for me personally, I don't like 6 a whole lot because it's got the kind of light world, dark world thing going on where you go back and forth between those, and I think I'm personally really fatigued on that mechanic from all the Zelda that I've played and Metroid Prime 2, stuff like that. I just kind of personally don't really like that mechanic that much anymore, so that makes it harder for me to like 6. That being said, it is definitely a cut above most turn-based RPGs, so even though I don't like it that much compared to the other ones, it's still a really good game. 7 I actually don't have. It's available on the 3DS or PS1. The 3DS remake came out not too long ago. 7's actually my least favorite Dragon Quest game. I don't like how disjointed the stories are. There's almost not an overarching plot. There is one, but not really. And not a big fan of a lot of the characters in it. It's super grindy in my opinion, even for a Dragon Quest game, which by the way are very grindy games. But the thing that makes Dragon Quest games for me a lot less grindy or more tolerable is how fast paced the combat is. It's faster than any Final Fantasy and way faster than like Pokemon by a mile. There's no like camera panning around the battlefield or little things that slow down combat. I mean, if you're grinding in Dragon Quest, it's fast and furious, and I think that makes it a lot more tolerable for me. But yeah, 7 is probably my least favorite Dragon Quest game.